She called it a break. I called it betrayal. And by the time I realized what was really happening, she'd already emptied our joint account. My name is Ryan Whitaker. I'm 38 years old, born and raised in Charlotte, North Carolina. I've spent the last 6 years working as a freelance systems analyst after getting downsized from a corporate IT role I thought I'd retire from. I'm not flashy. I don't chase drama. I build systems, solve problems, and mind my business. I thought my marriage was one of the few things in my life I could count on to stay solid. Turns out I was wrong about that too. Claire and I had been married for 9 years. We weren't the perfect couple, but we weren't a disaster either. We had what people call a grown-up marriage. Bills were paid on time. Fights were rare. Weekends meant coffee runs, hardware store errands, and the occasional brunch with friends. We had a dog named Jasper who acted like a security guard for squirrels and Amazon boxes alike. I thought we were in a season, not a storm, one of those rough patches couples go through. I had been laid off from my IT job during a massive downsizing wave, and I was trying to rebuild through contract work and freelance gigs. It wasn't glamorous, but the money was steady enough. Claire said she supported me. She even said she was proud of how I kept trying. At least that's what I thought. The conversation started on a Wednesday night after dinner. She was clearing dishes when she casually said, "I think I need some space for a while." I paused. "Space?" "Yeah," she said, almost too calmly. "Time to think about us, about everything." She was using therapy words. You know what I mean. Vague, rehearsed phrases that sound mature on the surface but hide something underneath. "What does that mean exactly?" I asked, keeping my voice measured. "It means I'm going to stay at my sister's for a bit. I just need to sort my head out." I didn't yell. I didn't beg. That's never been my way. But inside, something twisted, something quiet and cold. Still, I nodded. "Okay, if that's what you need." She smiled. "Thank you for understanding." She packed a bag that night and left. No tearful goodbye, no hesitation, just a light kiss on the cheek and a "I'll call you soon." That should have told me everything. The first week, I didn't hear much, just a few vague texts. "Hey, just checking in. Hope you're doing okay. This space is good for us." I tried to believe that. I gave her the benefit of the doubt. I thought maybe we really did need a reset, some time to realign. I told myself, maybe she's overwhelmed. Maybe she's grieving something quietly. Maybe it's me. I stopped saying maybe the day my debit card got declined at the grocery store. It was a simple $60 run. Eggs, dog food, a rotisserie chicken. When the machine beeped red and the cashier gave me that polite, awkward smile, I knew something was off. I used a backup card and paid. Got to my car and immediately opened our banking app. Joint account balance, $42,013. The last time I checked, about 2 weeks prior, we had close to $18,000 saved there. Rent, bills, and buffer money. I refreshed the app. Same number. I stared at the screen, hoping it was a display error. It wasn't. I drove straight to the bank. I wanted to believe it was fraud, that maybe our account had been hacked, that someone had gotten into it and wiped us clean. The teller was kind, but direct. She printed the last 10 days' transactions for me. 5 large withdrawals, all authorized, all processed at different branches, all done in person. By Claire. No hesitation, no red flags from the bank, since she was a joint owner. I stood there, reading the transaction logs, my name printed beside hers on each page, like we were still a team, but only one of us had been playing fair. I drove home in silence. The usual comfort of the radio felt wrong. I needed to hear the quiet. I needed to think. Claire hadn't just taken our money. She'd made a statement. She wasn't just taking space. She was relocating her life while I stayed still. At home, I poured myself a drink. Not much. Just enough to burn. Jasper followed me into the living room, ears back, tail low. He could sense the shift. I sat down with my laptop and did what I do best. I investigated, quietly, thoroughly. I knew Claire wasn't stupid. If she'd done this much out in the open, what was she hiding in the dark? I started with her email. We had synced calendars and shared cloud access for years. She must have forgotten her tablet was still logged in, or maybe she didn't care. The first thing I saw was a forwarded hotel confirmation, not from weeks ago, from 3 days ago. Booked for 2 adults, 2 nights, Charlotte Marriott, Uptown. There was even a note in the booking, quiet corner room, no kids, no interruptions. Next, I opened our router admin panel, something I'd set up years ago. She never bothered with that stuff. There it was, a connected device labeled David's iPhone. It had accessed the network during the last 2 weekends she was supposedly at her sister's. I copied the MAC address, searched old logs. That same device had been in the house before too, late nights when I'd been out consulting. I remembered David vaguely from one of her company barbecues. Loud, sales type, too polished, too confident. I remembered how he hugged Claire just a little longer than necessary. I pulled up the synced messages from her iPad, and there it was, all of it. The messages started friendly, memes, jokes, complaints about long meetings. Then it got personal, emotional, then sexual. Photos, flirty notes, inside jokes, plans for a future I clearly wasn't in. The most recent message hit harder than the rest. He's still clueless. I'll move my stuff while he's at his mom's next week. Everything will be ready. They had a plan, and I wasn't just excluded from it. I was being erased from my own life. I sat still for a long time. Then, like I was on autopilot, I opened a blank Google Doc and started typing. First, I listed every financial transaction Claire had made in the last month. Then, every message, time-stamped. Then I took screenshots, dozens of them, hotel bookings, flirty exchanges, references to me, bank withdrawals. I organized them in folders, banking, messages, devices, movement logs. Then I encrypted everything and uploaded it to a private cloud I controlled. If this was war, I wanted air support, backups, and an exit strategy. I didn't want revenge and fire and screaming. I wanted precision. The next morning, I called Morgan. He was an old college friend, now a respected divorce attorney in Charlotte. The kind who wore tailored suits and kept files like puzzle boxes, layered, clean, bulletproof. When he answered and heard my tone, he skipped the small talk. "Bring everything," he said, "and don't confront her yet." I didn't. Instead, I waited. And while I waited, I watched. That weekend, I pretended to visit my mother, just like Claire expected. But I didn't leave town. I booked a room at a cheap motel 5 minutes from our house and connected to our home security system. 2 years ago, I'd installed cameras myself. Motion activated, cloud-backed, no monthly service. Claire had forgotten about them, or assumed I'd disabled them. Saturday night, around 7:30, a black sedan pulled into our driveway. David stepped out. He was carrying a bag and a bottle of wine. Claire greeted him at the door, wearing the blue sweater I bought her on our 5th anniversary. They kissed, not the maybe we're friends kind, the kind you don't come back from. I recorded the entire weekend. Sunday morning, they made breakfast in my kitchen, sat on my couch, watched a movie using my Netflix account. I didn't get angry, I got focused. By Monday, I had everything I needed. By Tuesday morning, Claire texted me. "Claire, hey, hope you're doing okay? Want to grab coffee this week?" I stared at the screen for a moment before replying. Me. "Sure, tomorrow, 10 a.m., same place." I called Morgan again. "I'm meeting her tomorrow." "Keep it civil," he said. "No threats. Let her talk, then give her the documents. And after that, we file. Let her read the paperwork cold." That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. Wednesday morning was unusually bright. I got to the coffee shop 20 minutes early, sat by the window, brought the manila folder with me. Claire walked in exactly at 10:02. She looked untouched, relaxed, like someone stepping into a casual meeting, not a conversation that could detonate a marriage. "Hey," she said, sliding into the seat across from me like it was just another Wednesday. "Morning," she smiled. "I'm really glad we could talk. This break has given me some clarity." I nodded once. "Clarity's good." She reached into her purse and pulled out a little notepad, like she'd made a list. "I think we both realized some things during this time," she said, "and I'm open to reconnecting, slowly, maybe working with a counselor, if you're open to that." I slid the manila folder across the table. She blinked. "What's this? Evidence?" She opened the flap. Her eyes moved over the first few pages. The printed screenshots, the timestamps, the hotel booking, a message bubble. He won't even notice. She didn't speak, just flipped to the next page, and the next. Finally, "You went through my stuff? You mean the stuff on a synced account we both used? The cameras I installed 2 years ago?" She sat back, slowly. "You've been spying on me?" "No. I was documenting the woman who stole my money, brought another man into our house, and planned to ghost me out of my own life." Claire didn't say anything for a long time. When she finally did, her voice was flat. "What do you want?" "Nothing more than what's mine and what's fair." Her eyes narrowed. "You're going to make this ugly?" I sipped my coffee. "I'm not making it anything. I'm just not letting you rewrite it." She leaned forward. "Ryan, if you go through with this, you'll regret it. I promise." "No," I said. "I think you're the one who's going to regret it." I stood up, picked up my coffee, and walked out. She didn't follow me. That night, Morgan filed everything. We froze joint assets, submitted evidence of financial misconduct, and began proceedings for a clean divorce with restitution. The footage, The messages, the withdrawals, it was all admissible. Claire had underestimated me. She thought I'd just sit in the wreckage, but I rebuilt, quietly, precisely, completely. And that was only the beginning. By the time the divorce papers were officially filed, Claire had already begun telling people it just didn't work out. Her version of the story was clean, vague, non-confrontational. She needed space. She was feeling lost. She and Ryan had grown apart. It was crafted like a PR campaign. No one needed to be the villain. No one needed to talk about hotel receipts or cloud-synced devices, or a man named David who wore my hoodie in my own living room. But I didn't correct the story. I didn't post screenshots or send warnings to mutual friends. I let her talk, because I knew the truth was heavier than her version could carry, and eventually it would collapse on its own. Morgan, my lawyer, was relentless. Within days, Claire received a formal letter of intent, restitution of half the joint funds she withdrew, immediate cease and desist from further use of our joint credit, freeze on all assets until financial misconduct was evaluated, request for full disclosure of hidden accounts or shared properties. She didn't respond right away. Instead, I started hearing from other people we knew. First came Liam, one of our mutual friends from a photography club. "Hey man, Claire mentioned you two are going through something. Just wanted to say I'm sorry." She seemed, I don't know, confused. Confused. Interesting choice of word. Then a message from her cousin Julia. "Ryan, I don't mean to intrude, but Claire told my mom you were turning cold. I don't know what's going on, but I hope you're okay." Turning cold? No, I was done being warm to people who lit matches near the gas tank. Meanwhile, David had started showing up more boldly. Their Instagram stories, public for some reason, began showing small hints. Wine glasses, familiar kitchen tiles, one blurry shot of a dog, not Jasper, but lounging on the couch I'd picked out. I never liked David. Now I knew why, but I wasn't going to attack him. He wasn't my target. My silence was. I spent my time building, gathering documents, compiling Claire's transaction trails, backtracking her sudden girl trips that matched deposits in her private account. I had access to enough data to choke a courtroom. But I didn't want just a win in court. I wanted to leave no doubt, no gray area she could hide in. And for that, I needed more than screenshots. So I contacted Evan, a former cybersecurity student I'd mentored. He owed me a favor, and he was good at the kinds of things most people didn't know how to find. I gave him one instruction. Tell me everything that connects Claire to David. Real estate, business, investments, anything tied to both their names. 3 days later, Evan called. You were right to be suspicious. David bought a small rental property 6 weeks ago. Guess who co-signed the loan? My heart didn't even jump. I'd expected something like this. Claire? Bingo. Her name's not on the deed, but she guaranteed the loan. And the address listed? It's the same one from that Marriott booking. They've been staying there. That was enough. Not for revenge, for leverage. At this point, Claire messaged me directly for the first time in 2 weeks. Claire, can we talk? Me. About what? Claire, everything. I think we both let things spiral. I miss you. Can we meet? I waited 6 hours before responding. Me, I'll think about it. She read it immediately. Then silence. That night I got an email from Morgan. Her new attorney reached out. They want to negotiate terms quietly. I stared at the screen. Claire had lawyered up, which meant she was starting to feel the ground shift under her feet. Good, because the cracks, they were only getting wider. Claire tried to salvage her image. She posted curated photos. Brunch with her sister, yoga on a balcony, quotes about self-growth and forgiveness. Every caption felt like it was written for an audience she was trying to win back. Meanwhile, my silence continued to work like acid. Our mutual friends stopped reaching out to me with questions. Instead, they started going quiet on her. I heard from Liam again. Claire's been acting weird lately, trying to explain things that no one asked about, like over-justifying. Then Julia messaged. She snapped at Mom yesterday when she asked about the divorce. Started crying, said everyone's taking your side. I hadn't spoken a word. Claire was fighting ghosts. Ones she created. Meanwhile, Evan dug deeper into David. Turns out our friend David has quite the resume, he told me over the phone. 2 failed startups, 1 lawsuit from a former business partner, and a sealed court record from 3 years ago. What kind of record? Hard to tell. Sealed, like I said. But the date lines up with a restraining order filed by a woman named Ellen Mitchell. My stomach tightened. I Googled Ellen Mitchell, found an old blog entry from a domestic abuse support forum. I let him into my life because he seemed strong, successful. When I tried to leave, he turned violent. I had to disappear for a while. David had a pattern. Charm, control, isolate. Now Claire was next in line. I met with Morgan again. this time in person. We sat in his downtown office, glass walls and silence thick between us. "Should we go public?" he asked. "Not yet," I said. "Let her keep walking forward. She'll walk into her own trap. What about this David stuff?" "We'll hold it, for now." Morgan nodded slowly. "Ryan, you're cold." "Just clear." The next week, Claire emailed me again. "Claire, please don't do this. We can find a way to work through it. We were good once. Remember?" I didn't respond. Instead, I went to our storage unit, one she'd forgotten about, or assumed I had. Inside were old records, joint purchases, insurance policies, sentimental keepsakes, and, in a sealed envelope, a handwritten letter from Claire. It was dated 5 years ago, on our anniversary. "You always make me feel safe. I never have to question your love. No matter what happens, I want this. I want us." I placed the letter back in the box and locked the unit. That same day, I received an email from Claire's lawyer. They were requesting mediation. Private, discreet, quick, a sign of panic, but also of calculation. They were hoping to contain the damage, but I was just getting started. Mediation was scheduled for Friday at 3 p.m. We met in a private office suite, neutral ground, no courtrooms, no noise. Claire walked in with her attorney. She looked tired, diminished. Her usual polish faded. I sat calmly with Morgan. I wore no tie, no expression, just quiet focus. The mediator, a woman named Ms. Daniels, began with basic intros. Then, "Let's begin with financial disclosures." Claire's attorney produced a slim folder. Numbers, spreadsheets, incomplete statements. Morgan laid down a thicker folder. He didn't speak, just opened it and slid it forward. Inside were bank logs, transaction summaries, messages, footage timestamps, even a certified timeline cross-referencing Claire's trips with account withdrawals. Ms. Daniels raised an eyebrow. Claire didn't look up. Then came the turning point. Morgan pulled out one final document, sealed, notarized, printed on firm paper. "This," he said, "is a verified loan document showing Ms. Claire Everett as a guarantor for a property purchased by Mr. David Randall. This document, along with digital metadata, proves collusion during the marriage to siphon funds into external investments." Claire's face cracked for the first time. "I didn't," she started. Morgan gently raised a hand. "We're not here to argue intent, just facts." The room went quiet. The mediator looked at Claire. "You have the right to respond." Claire's lawyer whispered something. She nodded, lips trembling. "We'd like to break for a private discussion," the attorney said. "Of course," Ms. Daniels agreed. Claire and her lawyer left the room. Morgan and I didn't speak. We didn't need to. 15 minutes later, they returned. Claire's lawyer cleared his throat. "My client is prepared to settle." "Terms?" Morgan asked. Claire's lawyer glanced at her, then back to us. "Full financial restitution, waiving any claim to spousal support, agreement to finalize the divorce within 30 days, non-disclosure of Ryan's evidence, in exchange for confidentiality regarding Miss Everett's personal affairs." Morgan turned to me. I nodded once. "Accepted." Claire didn't say a word. She just stared at the table, like it betrayed her too. That night, I didn't go out, didn't celebrate. I walked Jasper through our neighborhood. The same streets where Claire and I used to laugh, plan, dream. Now they were just roads, empty of noise, full of truth. 3 weeks later, I received a card in the mail. No return address. Inside, a short note in Claire's handwriting. "You were always smarter than me. I just didn't realize you could be colder too. I hope you got what you wanted." I folded the card, threw it in the trash. Not out of hate, just closure. The truth is, I didn't get what I wanted. I didn't want betrayal. I didn't want to turn into someone who planned revenge by the kilobyte. But when someone steals from your soul, you have 2 choices: break quietly or rebuild louder than they ever expected. I chose the latter. And now, I don't owe anyone a single word, not even her. 6 months passed, not quickly, not easily, but they passed. And each week I could feel the weight of her decisions leaving my body, like smoke clearing after a fire that nearly took the house. I didn't go back to the old apartment. I bought a small place out near the lake, quiet, isolated, no shared walls, no shared passwords, just Jasper and me. I started doing freelance work again, small IT gigs, some cybersecurity consulting, and eventually, a partnership offer from a mid-sized firm. They said they admired how I handled adversity. They didn't know the details. They didn't need to. They saw a man who didn't break, just rewired. Claire, last I heard, she moved to another city. David wasn't in the picture anymore. Shocker. A friend said she was working a customer service job at a private bank, 9 to 5. Quiet life. No updates since then. I didn't block her, but I stopped checking. Some wounds only stay open if you keep touching them. I kept the letter she wrote me, the one from our anniversary, but not out of sentiment. I keep it in a drawer as a reminder. You can't love someone enough to stop them from betraying you. They have to choose not to. One evening, I sat out on the deck, watching Jasper chew on a stick, phone in hand. No texts, no missed calls. And for once, that wasn't lonely. It was peace. You want to know what the real revenge is? Not the documents, not the legal win, not the quiet exposure or the frozen assets. It's this: stillness. The ability to move forward without bitterness. To stand on your own story, not what someone tried to write over you. And when you do that, they disappear. Not because you destroyed them, but because you no longer need them in your story. So if you're reading this, or listening, and you've been lied to, betrayed, manipulated, you don't have to scream. You don't have to post. You don't have to beg them to see your worth. You just have to survive. Then rise. And when you do, let them feel your silence. Because silence, when earned, speaks louder than rage ever could.